Hi, this is Andy Summers, and you're checking out The Jeremy White Show.
An all-new episode of The Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
A friend of mine, Adam, I told him that I was going to be interviewing you, and he immediately wanted me to ask you a pretty simple question. He said, how do classical and jazz guitarists wind up playing rock and roll and new wave and punk at that?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it comes out of curiosity, maybe. But to play all those things, of course, is a lot of work, and you have to hone your skills. I started as a kid, like anybody, you learn the first few chords, but my ear went to the more harmonically evolved music of jazz, and jazz, all the incredible lines that the American jazz guitar players I was listening to were playing, So that was more difficult. That took more work, but of course it helped me develop my ear at that age, 16, where you're taking a 33 1/3 vinyl album and reducing it to 16 1/8 or whatever, and trying to get those solos an octave down. That's where I started, and I think a lot of guys did in those days, because we didn't have this incredible industry of how to play the guitar that exists in today's world. It's amazing. Yeah. I had a very scrappy little book with 3 or 4 chords in it, and looked over other kids' shoulders to try and figure out what that little triangle was that they were playing. That's where it started.
If you had access to the internet at the time, where do you think your guitar skills would be at this time?
I don't know. It's so insane now, that I actually am not someone who goes on the internet and looks at all guitar players on YouTube, because it's such a distraction. I think I have a very distinctive style. I'm a great guitar player, and I don't need to see every new kid on the block that's coming up. I stay interested, but I try to keep my own, mental world of the guitar. Because otherwise, if I start going on YouTube and doing all that kind of stuff, people go, what do you listen to? Aren't you listening to music all the time? No, I saw someone else get asked this question. The musician's head, is sacred space. And I don't want to have all kinds of crap flowing in and out of it all the time, because I have to think about my own stuff. So that's really the reason. Maybe it's selfish, but it's a sort of self-preservation in terms of keeping your own thing in your head.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because Eddie Van Halen was infamous for being that guy that wouldn't listen to any music. Like, every time he'd do an interview, people were like, what do you listen to? He's like, honestly, the last record I listened to was like Peter Gabriel's So. I don't listen to radio. Like, when I drive, I don't listen to any music. I listen to my car. I don't want outside influences. I just want my own music in my own head.
And he's a very different stylist from me, and he was one of the all-time greats as far as I'm concerned. I love Eddie Van Halen's playing. And
were you competitive with Eddie in the 80s at all?
No, he loved the Police. I didn't love Van Halen, but I loved him and his guitar playing. I think he was really one of the real greats. There's kind of a genius that he did, his whole tapping, but he was just such a natural musician. Yeah. But he's absolutely right about, but he's not the guy you would think would say that. But see, it's a real thing. And somebody else actually, because I just did a tour, and this guy had been touring with him, and we talked a lot because we had to travel a lot, is Adrian Belew, another great guitarist that plays with a lot of people, doesn't listen to anything. And nor did anyone in the band, because the projection is from the public onto the guitarists, let's say, that they're listening to all kinds of shit. We're not. My listening is very special, arcane, rare, unexpected. I'm not putting on pop records. Why would I want to do that? I keep I don't want to spoil the creativity if there is any. So,
yeah. Talking about the guitar just briefly, was it weird for you to go from playing all those jazz progressions and those extended chords and stuff to just playing, 3-chord punk songs?
Yeah, and it didn't last long. It lasted about 5 minutes. Yeah. If you want to go back over it historically, you're right, because in a kind of an interesting way, it does all tie together. When I got together with Stewart and Sting, there wasn't much there, hardly any music at all. And all it was, Stuart had figured out you could use two fingers and make sort of the bottom, if you use one finger on the E string and then one on the fifth string, and sort of diametrically opposed, it sounds like rock. So there were a few songs that were sort of knocked out like that, but there was not really much music, and it was very fast because it was supposed to be punk.
Yeah.
When I turned up and we had to, play together anyway, we were sort of all hired together as a job. And then I'm the guitar player. And of course, I've got all this other stuff under my fingers, and it immediately interested Sting. Like, okay, now that's a chord. Oh, no, that's interesting. And he had the ears for it, maybe because he came out of a kind of a jazz rock background, and he's a great natural musician. And I had all this stuff, and I wasn't going to just play these pretty stupid, 1, 6, 4, 5 chord sequences. I started to move it, and hence the music of the Police was born. That's really that. That's it in an eggshell.
Yeah. What was it about the Telecaster that made you gravitate towards the tele?
Well, I didn't gravitate towards the tele. The Telecaster fell from heaven into my lap, actually. Yeah. I was just prior to the Police, I was at college in California. I had a brief few years before I returned to England. And, I had a little job teaching guitar. It was the only way I could survive because I didn't want to work. I was very much into practicing, and also going to college. I was getting a proper university music education.
So you were the party, you were sitting on your bed, practicing and studying.
Yeah. And anyway, one day this kid came into my little place where I was teaching, and he had a Telecaster. He asked me if I wanted to buy it. I can't remember his name even. I said, well, yeah, I only had a classical guitar. I took that Telecaster home. I said, let me just play it tonight. Man, it was an incredible guitar. And it was like, angels of the Lord beaming down on me. And that was the moment. And I got it. And I don't know how I got the money exactly to pay off this kid the $200 for the guitar. Of course, the guitar became the guitar for the next year. All the Police albums were recorded on it. Right. On every concert. And it was the iconic guitar. It was actually a great guitar. And the ultimate story of that is that Fender eventually reproduced it exactly, scratch for scratch, and it sold out immediately. So
it's amazing how they do that in their custom shop.
Oh, incredible! They came to my studio, and they videoed it, they photographed it very close, they measured all the scratches and dents, they made a movie of it. They took the whole thing apart, which gave me a heart attack. Looked at the wiring. I mean, man, they went deep. Yeah, like, oh, don't do that. No, they were great, and I've had a really good relationship with Fender. And so, yeah, anyway, there you go. I got lucky. I got the lucky guitar, and it, carried me through all of that.
To bring it back to Eddie Van Halen, they did the same thing to the Frankenstein guitar. They did it all by photos, apparently. They didn't even get the real thing until they gave it to Ed, and he was like, okay, yeah, you're doing a good job. Here's the real one. Now you can do even better.
Oh, he was jealous over it. Yeah.
Just to talk about guitar tone real quick. Everybody talks about, in the 80s, Eddie Van Halen, Neil Schon, Tom Scholz. No, I rarely hear your guitar tone ever talked about as some of the greats. And when you hear Every Breath You Take or those, slaps on Roxanne, like, to me, those guitar tones are iconic.
Yeah.
And where did you come up? Where did that guitar tone?
Well,
where did you conceive that tone?
Well, partly from the guitar itself, and my ear went to these things. When I got the Telecaster, this was a period when a lot of guys were like ripping guitars apart and changing pickups and rewiring. It became a very nerdy kind of thing, and the little Telecaster was one of those where it had an inbuilt overdrive unit. It had a humbucker on the front by the neck, an incredible, I guess, slightly overwound.
So it was pretty hot
Fender
output.
pickup at the back, single bar, and but it had a 5-way switch, and I could get this incredible out of phase tone on the sort of 4th position. So, I mean, and I've never found another guitar that was as good as that did it like that one did it. It was sort of a magical guitar. Well, I've still got it. I'm not telling you where it is.
That's hilarious. I'm not coming for it.
No, you know, people go, "You want to sell your tele?" I go, "No way, man." I mean, that's like soaring off your own leg. Why would I do that? It was the most important thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, you see that all the time. Rock stars, auctioning off their guitars or selling off their collection, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, okay, money's great.
Well, I'm one of those, and I haven't done it. And my manager, eyes on the dollar. He's going, "Why do you sell all your guitar?" I don't know what the last count is. It's about 220. I sold off 200 in England. You can imagine I get given many guitars. I buy some, but I am not a guitar freak at all. I'm not a nerd.
You're not a gearhead.
Player. No, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, they're tools for me. Yeah, I appreciate them, and I've got some very beautiful old sort of antique things, like old F-hole guitars. I've got a D'Angelico that I pulled out yesterday. I've got a number of these things, but I have to believe, this is my philosophy, that they're getting made better than they used to. And just because it says 1958, it may have something, because they tended to overwind the pickups. I actually like to think that all that knowledge of all these years of guitar making, building guitar pickups, has gotten better, and the guys really know what they're doing. Yeah. And I think some really interesting guitars are being made these days. And I have a sort of mild interest in it, but I'm not a nerdy freak. I'm a player. I'm into music.
Yeah. I'm sure it's been covered before, but I'm just curious because I have no idea. Like, how did you get the guitar tone for the intro for Every Breath You Take and that whole thing? Because it was the early days of like super processed modulated guitar with chorus.
Yeah. Well, it's a little slightly tragic story with that, because we put it, when that song, Every Breath You Take, was going in the trash. We didn't like it. Stuart and Sting could not agree on where the drums and bass were going to sit with the song. And it wasn't going to make it onto the album, but we needed the material. And, the famous story is Sting just turned to me and said, "Well, go in there, make it your own." Of course, I had all this sort of stuff under my fingers. I was the Police stylist, guitarist, if you like. Yeah. And I went in and I got that lick almost. It was like one take. Everybody stood up and cheered and clapped. But that was done on the Telecaster. No, there was a slight weird thing that happened with it, because I thought, God, that's great. It sounded so good in Montserrat. We moved up to Canada to, I don't know, we even know why we did it, to
Le Studio?
Mix the album, Le Studio. And the engineer did all this shit on it, and put icy echoes. And I walked in to hear, we would give him a chance to do the mix. Mm-hmm. Then we'd come in and go, "Okay, don't like that, move that, they make the bass louder, wherever the kick's not loud enough." And he had fucked up the guitar sound. I was absolutely furious. And I said, "Man, I don't know what you did, but you've ruined the guitar sound. Take all that crap off." And I think we tried to do something like to get I think we had 2 sets of tapes to get the original tapes back. So I remember how it was in Montserrat, and we pretty much got it back to, what it needed to be. But it was a heartbreaking moment, when he almost lost this incredible sound I had, which was probably, the Telecaster through a couple of twins or something.
Because it's got that almost like an Eventide harmonizer kind of chorus on it, or So I was curious what you used.
I don't know. I don't think we had Eventide harmonizers then. It was pretty more straightforward. Yeah.
Do you remember what it could have been like for the chorusy sound?
I was probably using Roland chorus. Absolutely. They were throwing as much equipment at me as they could.
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny how that guitar tone sort of laid the template for a lot of the studio guys going forward. I mean, the Dan Huffs and the Michael Landaus, they all wanted that clean, modulated, chorusy sound. I mean, what did you think of Def Leppard, the song Hysteria, when it came out, and that lick was a little too similar.
Was it? I haven't heard it, but yeah, we got ripped off. In other words, I'll look into that. Maybe we can have a lawsuit against them. That'll be fun.
You've never heard Hysteria by Def Leppard?
Oh, I'm going to play it in a minute. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
That is like one of the most like everybody talks about, and it's actually like, Phil Collin, he's a huge fan of the Police, and he said that, when we were writing the song, it was basically like a direct homage to the Police.
What's it called? Hysteria?
Hysteria, yeah. Let me see. I'll see if I can play you. I'll play you a snippet of it. Actually, hold on. Connect my phone here. Yeah, because it's got that chorusy, like, that's the tone. But you listen to the intro. Okay, here you go. I got it here for you. Check it out.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah.
Pretty close,
I
right?
mean, they do it very well. They're a very good band.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in some ways you can get all upset about it, or you can go, all right, well, they made a little tribute to us. That's nice. I won't kill them in court.
No, it's definitely an homage, because Phil is a huge fan of the band, and he talks about it all the time. He gives Police like huge credit.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But it's weird though. I mean, like, how can you come up with such an iconic guitar lick like that, and then Sting just gets all the writing credit?
Well, I can't even get into that, because it's a very contentious moment that is very much alive at the moment. So I can't really say much about it. Yeah, I mean, that's the other half of the song.
That happened a lot in the 80s, though, right? I mean, like, somebody would come in, and then, like, the band, if had the band not been together, like, that sound wouldn't have been created. So I never understood, like, how, one person got a writing credit versus the guitar player and this and that. It was always so weird.
Well, watch the press. Let's see what happens in the next year.
Oh, boy.
Well, I can tell you, mate.
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah, well, these things come up. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But that song was going in the trash until I played on it, and that's all there is to it. And I think that's kind of composition. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No one else is playing that guitar part.
It's apparently the biggest, like, the most played song of all time on radio.
It is. It's past 1.5 billion. I know that they call it, hey, no, just past 1.5 billion. Well, it means I'm the most played guitar player of all time.
Yeah, technically,
I was in the 80s too. People go, I walk around going, I'm the most highly paid and the most played in the world. My mother would be very proud. So would my dad. Who knew?
Yeah. I know we're running out of time, but the Cracked Lens and a Missing String tour, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City, and of course, tour dates around the U.S. and Canada, October 5th, 6th, and 7th, andysummers.com to get your tickets. Another question, just really quickly, since it's the 50th anniversary of The Exorcist, how did you end up how was it playing with Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells?
Well, that was another, it was a kind of a breakthrough moment for me, but there's a little magical element to it, because I was in London, there was sort of the punk scene, which I wasn't really involved in, but I had come back from the States. I was playing my ass off, and I had that Telecaster, and I started to get known around London. Okay, there's this guy, and he's got this, and I got people started to pick up on me. I got put in the music papers a lot, and I wasn't really playing with anybody except, I was with Kevin Coyne, I think. And he was on Virgin Records. So Virgin Records then in this early period was a big scene. There was this yard where everybody would go, and it'd be really hip and cool to hang out at Virgin. Richard Branson, they're all just coming up. And I was like, almost like a pet. I was in there all the time. They all liked me. And Mike Oldfield had Tubular Bells, and it was #1 straight for 2 years. And then Mike was not playing it. He was kind of an introvert. He stopped going out to do it, So they asked me. I was there on the right place, right time. So I got sent up to the north of England to play with the Newcastle Symphony Orchestra. And, I'm highly competent. I learned all the shit I had to play. It was broken into 2 halves. I'm playing with an orchestra. So I did it, and I was sort of noted for it. And, but in the actual moment on that night, I did the first half. Then there was an intermission. So this band came on stage, a local band, the sort of intermission filler. They were called Last Exit, and they played jazz rock. But there was a guy playing bass and singing, and it was Sting. So I listened to them about 5 minutes, went, yeah, okay. You know, and then I kind of went off and had a cup of tea before I had to come back. So, okay, fast forward 3 months later, I'm back in London and, you know, sort of scraping around doing this, that, and the other. And this guy wanted to form it's a bit of a complicated story. Anyway, he took me to the studio to play with two other guys in Swiss Cottage in London. And we were playing away, and I think, well, they're young, they're okay. I don't know, they're kind of rushing a bit. It's what it is. But I was being cheerful and sort of playing along with them. I had my Telecaster and a Fender Twin, and then we stopped for a bit, and the singer came up to me. The guy was doing whatever singing, basically said, "Yeah, man, I don't know if you remember me. You know, like, I was in that band Last Exit, and my name's Sting. You know." I went, oh, yeah. I can't remember you now. Yeah. Anyway, so there was the moment, you know, that's what it produced.
Wow.
Well, actually, there's another bit to that story because I was playing around London. Then I was playing with a guy called Kevin Ayers. And again, this is like the magic of Newcastle. Ended up in Newcastle, went to this hotel where bands stayed. So there was another band there called Curved Air. So I was playing with Kevin Ayers. So the two bands got together, and I remember laying on the floor in this room, musicians hanging out very late at night. And there was this young guy there, like could talk the hind legs off a mule, and it was Stuart Copeland. He was telling me, he was 22. He was telling me how to get all these things. I could go down this road to this factory and get a free guitar and all that. And he blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I met both Sting and Stuart in Newcastle. 3 months later, we're in this rehearsal studio, and I had no idea where they were. They both introduced themselves to me, and Stuart goes, "Oh, remember we were lying on the floor talking." So you have to wonder about stuff like that. Like, now, was this meant to be? Because, you know, within short order, I was in that band, you know, which had absolutely no future whatsoever.
And then divine intervention.
Yeah, then, you know, thank the Lord.
That's just absolutely incredible to hear the story. I mean, like today, you know, you interview a band like, yeah, we met each other on TikTok and we messaged each other. But no, back in the day, you had to go out there and meet people.
Oh, really? Now it's TikTok. Yeah, I think we're on TikTok, you know. Not easy to get on, actually, but we are on it now, finally.
Yeah, all the social media.
Very different.
Just talking about that, I mean, like, with all the different exits the band would take musically over those 5 records, I mean, had you guys made another, and especially with all the technological advances in music, I mean, like, where do you think the band would have gone?
Well, you know, I mean, the bare naked truth is Sting wanted to do it on his own, so he left the band. That's all, you know, I can't put it any more boldly than that. Of course we could have gone on. There's plenty of creative juice left. We could have been like U2, for instance, who, you know, they got their... But you know, maybe there's a difference in something like this. You know, U2, I think they'd all grown up together. They'd known each other since they were like 11 years old. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case with the Police. We all came as semi-adults. We were in our 20s. We weren't, you know, like 11 years old growing up in soccer. So I think the bond was slightly different. It was a band that was sort of thrown together to be a band, you know. We didn't have this history together. No, I felt very, very sad and damaged that you know, the band got broken up, and it took me a while to fully recover, if you like. Well, maybe you never recover, because that was a very intense bonding. I mean, we played for about 8 years, but it was like we played for 50 because we were so incredibly successful. We're probably the most successful band of all time. Maybe apart from the Beatles. I don't think anyone's ever beaten our figures or numbers or the number of people we played to. But we did start with absolutely nothing. And, you know, so it's a legacy. It's something to be very proud of. It lives on, you know, it hasn't gone away. You know, we were blessed, you know. So
it's almost like being in a long relationship with.
Oh, it is. It's a relationship. It's never going to leave me until the day they chuck me 6 feet under. That's it. It'll always be in our lives. But, it's something to be proud of. We made great music. I wish it had gone longer because I think there was so much more juice in it. But we did the reunion tour, and that was fantastically successful.
Yeah.
So
a lot of money to
I'm
be
bringing
made.
this tour to Canada. People will hear some special arrangements of Police songs, plus all the great visuals. This is really an audio-visual show, mixed multimedia. There are some funny stories. It's going very well. I'm done, I think 12 or 14 shows so far in the States, and I'm really looking forward to Canada.
Yeah.
Because it's always great up there. I have very warm feelings for it. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what can fans expect from this? Are you going to be showing off a lot of your photography and stuff too?
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's mostly.
It's going to be, I have, the actual setup is I have a full-size cinema screen.
Okay.
And full-size cinema screen. So there's all this projection of sequences of photography that I've made. Each one's got a name, and I play special guitar music to it. Some with backing tracks, some solo. It's a very rich show in terms of, guitar playing. People want to really hear guitar stuff. You're going to get a full load.
Yeah.
And it's really come a long way since I first started. It's gotten much more sophisticated. I don't know, I say the word slick, but we've kind of got it now. And every time we do a show, we get little things. We're adding little bits now, right? We're not like the gigantic thing, but I'm pleased with where we've got to with it.
Yeah. You're going up there and you got like a script, but you're
kind of a script. Yeah, it's all set out. Yeah, no, it's not. I am actually improvising on the guitar because I get a setup, but every night I play differently. I get certain little licks. I go, oh, well, that was always good.
You mean you're not going up there and miming like all the other rock acts these days?
I do not mime. I'm a hardcore player. I'm playing.
What do you think of bands that are doing that these days? You got so many of them that are playing arenas, and it's the same Pro Tools track every night. It's not really rock and roll, is it?
Is that what they're doing? No, I couldn't even conceive that. I would find that incredibly lacking in satisfaction. I'm a great guitar player. I spent my whole life devoted to it, trying to be the best I can, and I want to get up on stage and do that. I don't want to mime to it. God, what an empty experience that to me would be soul destroying.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to agree. There's the argument for some of it being, accompaniment and, it helps fill up the sound, but there's a lot of bands
what I'd say, why don't you learn to play your fucking instrument? Sorry.
I completely agree. AndySummers.com to get your tickets. Toronto, Montreal, and Quebec City, October 5th, 6th, and 7th. I'm definitely going to come out to the Montreal show because this sounds absolutely phenomenal. Like, this sounds a great night.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being up there in all the touring I'm doing, US, Canada, and that. I'm going to Mexico on Sunday to do 3 shows down there, but Canada, I'm looking forward to it. So, good-o.
An all-new episode of The Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.